Hearts of Iron 4 is probably my favorite video game ever, and it is Paradox's most popular game by far, with around 40,000-ish people per day hopping on to play, and for good reason. It is Paradox's most polished game in my opinion, as well as covering the most popular war in history with great depth. But Hearts of Iron 4 is more than just a war simulator. It's a sandbox for pure chaos and creativity, especially once you start to add some mods into the mix. Mods can transform this strategic masterpiece into something absolutely schizophrenic. And I want to go over some of the more wacky mods and rate them based on how fun they are and how interesting the lore is. I think to start off, the most famous Hearts of Iron 4 mod is Kaisereich, a world where the Central Powers in Germany won World War I. The world in Kaisereich is in a weird state, where Germany, not England, is the premier power of the world. Most of Europe is under the German boot, some by choice, others are stuck due to economic ties. In Russia, the Civil War did still end up happening, but the Whites did end up winning it, but not before the Tsar was killed. It has a parliamentary-style republic, which has many bad actors able to take control of the government, or the communists can retake control. But unlike our timeline, which is interesting about this mod, communism does not really exist. Syndicalism does. In the UK and France, as well as one-third of Italy, are under syndicalist control. After losing the First World War, revolutions and mutinies occurred in Entente nations. So syndicalism, I doubt you have heard of it unless you have played the mod. It is a pretty niche ideology to believe it in our time, but it is a leftist thought doctrine similar to socialism. But unlike socialism, where ideally the workers own the means of production, syndicalism is more about unions being in charge and workers gaining political clout through their unions. It also has unions bartering with other unions for good, having each union act as almost its own commune, who then work together to divide resources. This is by no means a perfect definition, but of course the more niche an ideology is, the harder it is to explain and sort of differentiate from its more parent ideology. But it is still very interesting, and I honestly do credit this game with having syndicalism somewhat take a rise in popularity. Especially if you check the subreddit, there are still some syndicalists in France who use Kaiserreich stuff to promote it. Of course, in Europe, there's also still the Austrian Empire, which still exists, but not without major issues. They still suffer from having a multicultural empire, and Hungary refuses to pay them taxes or contribute to the empire's well-being. In the Middle East, the Ottomans maintain control barely, as they suffer from the same problems the Austrians have, where they are a multicultural empire that is stretched thin. Now, you think things would be better in America, but you would be wrong. America is suffering from the Dust Bowls and general discontent, as well as a divisive political situation between syndicalists and the Longists, who support and follow Huey Long, the governor of Louisiana. There are also the Democrats and Republicans. Eventually, in the mod, America falls into civil war, and it's up to you to decide who comes out on top. I think Kaisereich is a very interesting mod, with a lot of content. While there are no special game mechanics added, it is still an entirely different world to explore and play in, where there are wars happening everywhere, economic collapse is imminent, and it all culminates into a Second World War in the Kaisereich timeline. This mod has been constantly updated, and there's content for every corner of the planet. There is a reason it is the most subscribed to total conversion mod for Hearts of Iron 4. I would give this mod an 8.5 out of 10. It's a lot of fun and has real interesting lore. The next mod I want to talk about is also pretty well known. The New World Order, otherwise known as TNO. In this 1960s world, the Nazis won World War II and still keep an iron fist over Europe. Russia has been destroyed and is full of warlords and other claimants to the Russian throne. America is the last bastion of freedom and leads the OFN, the in-universe NATO. This mod plays nothing like regular Hearts of Iron 4. They changed almost every aspect of the game. There are all new technologies, plenty of content for a lot of nations. Although some of the nations' content is rather short, as a major power, you very rarely get to be involved in wars, but rather send volunteers to fight in proxy wars. The world you inhabit is in a Cold War between Germany, America, and Japan. The world is very different, although still familiar. They have a Vietnam stand-in. A lot of the same people and issues pop up across Asia and Africa, although with slightly different twists to them. But the writing in this mod is so good, you feel like you are there for everything that's going on. The writers for all content are able to expertly show the political tapestry of each nation. I love how in America in-game they even have an actual map for elections where when you want your candidate to run for president, you actually have to win the 270 electoral votes. Same with actually campaigning in specific states for Senate and Congress seats. This game is very, very, very in-depth about everything. I would say the only downside is there's not a lot of combat. If that's what you want to play Hearts of Iron 4 for, then this is not the mod for you. In this mod, it's basically you can either play as a monster or try to fight the monster that is fascism and authoritarianism in the world. I would give this mod a 9.5 out of 10. I think this mod exemplifies what a mod can be for a game. It feels like a completely different game. I think the lore is incredible and well thought out, and the gameplay experience changes completely. The next mod I want to talk about is The End of a New Beginning, which has you play Hearts of Iron 4, but in the 1850s. Specifically 1857. The whole tech tree has been reworked. You must produce other economic goods to support your economy. There's an in-depth political and economic system. So this mod unfortunately does not have a lot of content yet. I've been following the mod for a long time, and while it is a fun sandbox to play in, there is not a lot of historical content to play through. While some nations have interesting content to do, like unifying Italy as Sardinia Piedmont or playing through the Civil War in America, other nations just lack focus trees, or they only have focus trees and some decisions to pick through. I know I just praised TNO for that, but in this mod, the events and focus trees just don't feel eventful or like you're actually affecting anything. I just feel like the whole mod feels very bland if you're actually attempting to play it like Hearts of Iron 4, where you follow the focus tree and you make the decisions. There's a lot of systems put in place into it, but it just doesn't feel like it ultimately adds together for something meaningful. I would give it an overall rating of 6 out of 10. While I do see the ambition behind it, it's been developed for a very long time, and I honestly just don't think that there is a lot to show for it. I don't think this mod will be in a fun or playable state for a pretty long time. The next mod is Equestria at War, where you play as My Little Ponies. I mean, this is a whole new world to play in. I have never watched the show, and I was never interested in it either, so I have no clue whether all this lore is just made up or some of it is from the TV shows or books, but it is insane. There's all new pony models on the map. There's plenty of focus trees and content for most nations. They even have a Benito Mussolini stand-in. While this does play like regular Hearts of Iron 4, this mod team has put a completely new coat of paint over it. I mean, I have no interest in the IP of My Little Ponies at all, and I've enjoyed my time playing it. I mean, it's definitely very interesting, and sometimes you kind of forget they're even playing as a pony or a griffin or a zebra or whatever. I would give this mod an 8 out of 10. Really good total conversion mod that works within the confines of the game very well. The next mod is Old World Blues, where you play in the Fallout universe. This mod has been developed for a pretty long time, but it is still constantly updated. They have a unique economic system and new buildings to build, like power plants and schools. They have the whole West Coast in game, so all of your favorites like New Vegas and the new California Republic, Caesar's Legion, as well as some Raider factions are all in there, and a bunch of others. Bunch of other factions, some from in lore, and then some were just made up to fill out the map. There is a lot of content for each nation, with all major nations having a lot of content, both from in-game and then more alt history, so to speak, for the Fallout universe. You get to do things like have the Second Battle of Hoover Dam, have Caesar take over the NCR, you can play as gangsters up north. There's definitely just a lot to do in this mod. If you enjoy Fallout and Hearts of Iron 4, this is the mod for you. It basically plays the same as regular Hearts of Iron 4 with some light economic flourishes added on top. There's a bit of a cap-based economy in-game. I really do recommend downloading some sub-mods for this mod because the community is very active and they add a lot of things, both from in lore and out, like having the Enclave come back, stuff like this. So I would give this mod an 8 out of 10. It's a lot of fun and a great total conversion mod. It's pretty interesting to play a more strategy-oriented Fallout game. So the next mod is Red Flood, which is very, very schizo. So in Red Flood, the whole world basically went batshit insane. World War I went completely different, and now there are a bunch of accelerationists in charge. And all these different accelerationists want different things. So accelerationism in our world is usually classified as an ideology that sort of wants the world to end so that your preferred ideology can rise up from the ashes. So you would sort of support things like burning down power plants, stuff like that will cause our society to collapse sooner. But in this mod, accelerationism, depending on what accelerationist it is sort of like nationalism mixed with occult philosophical stuff. I mean, it's really hard to explain what each person believes unless you've actually played through the game and through their path. There are no special or new game mechanics, but it is an entirely new and different world. I mean, a lot of this stuff is just insane and nothing that I ever could have come up with. There's a lot of content for each nation. Most of the countries in game have a focus tree. And then there's also a lot of, like, I don't know, niche references to somewhat famous philosophers back then. Like being able to have Ayn Rand run a country in Siberia according to objectivism. There's like a Ludwig von Mises path in Austria where human actions and his economic ideas control the nation. There's a bunch of wacky socialist and communist and nationalist leaders. I mean, barely any countries in this game have regular liberal democracies. It's just insane. I'll give this mod an 8.5 out of 10 because it doesn't overhaul the Hearts of Iron 4 experience in any way, but it has some of the most unique lore I have ever seen for an alt history project. And there's just a bunch of wacky things to do for each nation. Each path is a lot of fun. And it's just great to read events and get a look into the ramblings of madmen and madwomen. And the final mod I wanted to talk about was the 1000-Week Reich, which is similar to TNO. It takes place in a timeline where the Axis won World War II. But this mod takes place in the 1950s, soon after their victory, unlike TNO, which takes place in the 1960s. In this mod, there's a lot more warfare, and there aren't themes of like mutually assured destruction. Great powers can go to war with each other with little downsides. They do have their own economic subsystem in place and a UN system, which sort of simulates what the world order is doing. It's definitely a lot of fun. I think this mod does do a lot of unique things when it comes to lore and how the world is set up, but it inevitably just gets compared to TNO. But I think both of them shine in different ways. Like I said, this mod has a much bigger emphasis on combat and less on being a more semi-realistic look at what a German world would look like. But it is definitely very ambitious. There's a lot of paths for America and some of the major nations. There's civil wars. You can even free Europe from the Nazis as America, what you can definitely not do in the New Order. So I would give this mod an 8 out of 10. It's a lot of fun, it's ambitious, and I think as it continues to get updated, it will become a more better and complete mod. So that's all I got. Thank you so much for watching. Go ahead, like, subscribe. Tell me what you thought about the video. I upload once a week, every Tuesday, which is when you should be watching this. But that's all I have. Remember that Jesus loves you.